Okay, and we are live, and we're live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube for another session of Friday Live. Now, today, of course, if you're somebody who lives in England or supports England, today is the day, or tonight will be the night when England play Scotland. So quite a significant day, and there'll be a lot of people either with big smiles on the face at 10 o'clock tonight or be miserable as sin. It really has that kind of impact on people. So as an Englishman, good luck, England. I hope it all goes well, of course, and I'll be shouting you on. In fact, I've got an England shirt, which I got for years ago. Anyway, enough of that. I've got Tom Marshall on today, and we're going to be talking about creativity. So I'll just give it a minute for people to get in, because obviously it takes time when it comes up live and what have you. And you might be watching this on catch up anyway, but we'll just get the intro. We'll just play the intro, and then we'll crack on talking to Tom, and we'll delve into this whole mysterious area of creativity. So there we go, Friday Live, a very warm welcome to this week's show. And I think this is probably, I should know this, shouldn't I? But I think this is number 8 so far. I think, so we're still on, we're still happening, and we will keep going as long as anybody's half interested. But people will be very interested today, because I'm delighted to be welcoming Tom Marshall to the show. So Tom, a very warm welcome to Friday Live. Great to see you again, my friend. Just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and who you are and what sort of expertise you have.
Sure. Right. Yeah. So I'm a 31-year-old, Oldham born dad of 3 beautiful girls with a huge creativity bug. And I spend most of my time when I'm not around 3 girls, basically creating content and telling stories, usually on digital platforms. So for the last 10 years, I've been a creative director, and I've been working with lots of creative ensembles and different diverse thinkers across a range of different sectors. So I like to kind of get my fingers in a lot of pies. I like to be an ideas man, but I also like to make things. So that's kind of me, hopefully in a nutshell.
Brilliant. Okay. And you're also, your background in terms of university and that involved videography, didn't it? Filmmaking, was it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it wasn't till 18 that I actually kind of made that decision. I was studying things like art and English and psychology and music. And I got to 18, I was like, what am I going to do? And I'd watched like the behind the scenes of, I think it was the Lord of the Rings trilogy many years ago. And it always inspired me. I love the view of that kind of behind the camera kind of set. Anyway, I just turned around to a parent and said, I'm going to do a film and TV production course. The mouths dropped a little bit because it did come out quite left field. But I spent 3 fantastic years in York. And I know university degrees can get a bit of a bad rap, and certainly media-based courses as well. But luckily, I got the 3 years that I really, the sort of best 3 years of my education in terms of institution education. Loved it. I actually managed to win a National Film Award in my first year. I kind of turned up not knowing anything really about cameras or editing or any of that kind of stuff. And I just spent every weekend with a camera. I got an award that kind of led on to opportunities while I was still at university. And by the time I left, I sort of built up a little bit of confidence to actually go, you know what, I can do this. And then off into the world I went.
And let's be honest, there's a lot worse places you can be studying than York.
Oh, yeah, it's fantastic.
What a wonderful city that is.
Yeah, I literally had a friend the other day, just like Facebook messaging me, just saying we're near York. I think we're traveling over from somewhere, and like we're gonna pop in. Can you recommend things? And he's like, yes, it's fantastic. And yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, Manchester is great, but in comparison, York feels very condensed. It's got a little bit more that kind of medieval history vibe to it, 365 pubs as well. That might be a complete lie, but they tell every fresher that when they turn up, they go 365 pubs, and you go, game on. Nobody's done it, but it just feels like it's a great way to explore somewhere, isn't it? And you get all the different places, different history.
I could just imagine that a couple of years ago. 365 pubs, and none of them are going to be open for 2 years.
Well, yeah, oh man, yeah. Well, that's the nice thing about York. There is so much, you've got the Shambles, you've got the Minster, you've got the two campuses, you've got the race. It's just there's so much going on for it, and it's a bit of a combination of, say, a bit of Chester, with sort of one of the more like east sort of seaside towns, or something like that. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's lovely. And I don't know about you, but there's certain places that I go to that seem to, I suppose, tickle the creative gene in me. Where I can sit somewhere and look out somewhere, or be in an environment, and it just feels as if your creative juices are being stimulated just by being in and amongst that sort of place. Are you like that? Because York's like that for me, some Shambles Square and the cathedral and stuff.
Kind of. I must admit, I think you're right about stimulus. That's such a key word that we should definitely talk about today. And I can get it. You can be in a bookshop, you can be at home, you can be in walking through a garden. Some people say they have a kind of affinity with like water, like lakes and seasides and stuff like that. I think for me, places like York, they allow me to relax. I think that's the biggest thing. And I think that's another side of creativity, that when you're not under that pressure, like you can stimulate ideas under pressure. Don't get me wrong, but on the other side, if you relax, you take a bit of time away from things. You suddenly shut down certain parts of your body. Suddenly the ideas kind of push them the way through to the top anyway. They're not fighting anymore. It's like when you're in the shower and you just relax. Sometimes you just have a little moment, don't you? You're driving along, you just have a little moment. So I think places like York, which is just beautiful, and there's so much going on, but it just feels kind of nice. It's not quite as rushy as London or places like that. That's where the stimulus comes through in a different way. But I still think you can get stimulated from busy places. York just has its own vibe.
Yeah, no, it's true. I just love the place, which is why obviously I mentioned it. Okay, so one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about recently is the whole creative process. Yeah. And as I've mentioned before we came on air, I've been doing some webinar stuff around creativity. And it's such a wide area as well. And it's interesting to hear what you said there about I'm kind of taking what you said and putting it into my own words, but almost that you can be more creative if you're not under stress and pressure. Yeah. So the question, of course, then is, in work environments, let's just go pre-pandemic. It's another conversation since the pandemic. It's usually a million miles an hour, on the hamster wheel, get the job done. It's process, it's systems, it's rushed and manic, you could argue, in a lot of businesses. Yeah. Do you think there's enough time and effort and energy put into the creative processing companies, or do they tend to find themselves on this hamster wheel of get more business in and such like?
Yeah, I think it depends completely where you work, but I've seen it in both areas. And unfortunately, I've probably seen it more on the side where creativity kind of gets shunned. Or the worst one is creativity gets sidelined to a arty thing, which, is, and I've heard that. I've got clients, who are very creative, but still sort of subcategorize creativity as a arty thing. And, you look at artists, musicians, writers, you can understand that because they're generally very creative. But, look at engineers. If you define creativity as recognizing ideas or recognizing solutions, problem solving, or just thinking through, through a situation, any of those kind of definitions, that, an engineer is just as creative, as somebody who writes a pop song, and so forth. So going back to your original question about kind of that hamster wheel, absolutely, I think that creativity can get shunned. The way I usually explain it to people is I feel like I work in gears. So, sometimes when you come back from a holiday, you don't feel very motivated because you've really relaxed. And it might take a few days or even a bit longer to feel like you get back up to kind of like the cruising bit again. But equally, if you get up to gear 6, you could be you're like going down the motorway, like your head on fire, kind of thing, you know. And
Yeah.
and I think that it can be almost too far. And so for me personally, I find that companies where they give enough time to just pull back, but at the same time they're not sluggishly moving along. I think Google like give like their employees like 10% of their time to work on like passion projects or something like that. And I love that kind of concept. But let's be honest, how many small businesses would take that risk? It's like the 4-day working week. Loads of people are worried that if I make that decision, we might lose money or clients or any number of things. So there is that fear factor. And when it comes down to creativity, you've got to be a bit confident and you've got to take a few risks, haven't you? So
yeah, it's really interesting and so topical and pertinent that you should mention it, because obviously we're recording this, or we're live streaming this, I should say, really, in June. It was still in the kind of pretty much in the middle of the pandemic. Hopefully there's hope on the other side, not too far away. But, you know, obviously the whole debate and discussion about home working has become center stage. It was a kind of a bit of a sideshow before all this happened. And yeah. I find it fascinating because I was recording a live podcast, as in physically in a room. You know, remember that? Physically in a room about 3 months before the pandemic kicked in. And the topic that we were debating on this podcast was the future of work. Right. And it was unbelievable that people were saying, yeah, I think people might start to work from home at some point, maybe a little bit more, but companies struggle with it because of control and all the rest of it. And now a lot of the debate is, can we get them back in the bloody office?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the thing. We've had it here as well, where I'm working, that, you know, we're a relatively small team. But you can sense when things aren't working when it's remotely, but you can also sense when things are working. Like for me, I've always enjoyed the ability to kind of go, you know, if I want to work, literally from day one for the last 10 years, if I want to work from home today, I'm going to work from home. And I think that's mostly about two things: rest and allowing yourself to avoid distractions that might exist at work. But equally, I like coming to a place of work for the same thing, where sometimes at home there are too many distractions. So it can work both ways. And I think that there's people out there say there's like a bit of a rule where you should spend a certain percentage of time away from whatever workplace is your normal, whether it's 10 or 30%, I can't remember, but it would make sense, doesn't it? Because if you're just in a booth, or even in like a really cool space, you know, really comfy space like your living room, and the fridge is there and the TV's there, still you got to get out of it, you know, at least half a day a week minimum must be. For me, it has to be more, but I have the benefit that the kind of work I do, like Monday I could be at one client, you know, in Bolton, then next day I could be in Yorkshire filming, then Wednesday I could be doing an editing thing, and then Thursday I could be at home and doing like virtual calls or what, you know. So I do naturally move around anyway, so I'm stimulated different ways. I can find rest periods. I'm driving, you know, for an hour at one point, I could be thinking one way, and the next minute I'm just got end-to-end Zoom calls, you know. So my day is quite different, but I know for a lot of people it won't be. They'll probably be in one space doing one consistent motion. I use the meta of sort of stacking shelves, nothing wrong with that. But, you know, it's the idea that if you're in that one building, just doing the same momentum, can you be as creatively sort of expressive as you wish? I don't know. I think there's a limit there.
Yeah, there is. So would you say that variety is extremely important in your work?
Yeah, but I would describe it as comfort zones. I think that's the difference. So because you can have variety in your life, but they can all be very normal, you know, like you could have a different takeaway every night. But at the end of the day, if you do it every night, it's like Chinese, Italian, you know, you do it every single week.
Who's been talking? I know I've put some weight on, but that's a bit...
but you know, you could call it variety, couldn't you? But let's be honest, if you do that every single week, it's not really variety anymore. It's just routine. So I'd say that comfort zones are things need to be, you need to step beyond them at your own pace, own speed. Some people are very extreme, aren't they? And they literally do jump around. Other people just take a one little step. But I think however you view it, getting out your comfort zone, certainly once a week. If you can do it every day, it's like what I say about you should laugh every day. There's little things like that. You should, you know, but you should push yourself beyond. And I know people don't like getting out of their comfort zones at times because it feels awkward. It can be embarrassing. It can be frustrating. It can be lots of things. But if you can view it more positively, then I think that variation you're saying, that's going to help you in the long run.
Yeah. Was there a point, do you ever remember thinking, if you think back, do you ever remember a point where you became self-aware that you were particularly, maybe naturally creative?
It's a good question. That it's a hard one, isn't it? Because
Mm.
I think there's so many qualities of creativity, confidence, energy, resourcefulness. And I think there are points in your life where you think, I'm a pretty resourceful person, or I'm a pretty observant person. And that all contributes. I tell you what, I remember when I was younger that me and my sister, my older sister, we used to do quick drawing. So this goes back to this comprehension of being arty, is creative. And I used to always get I was a pretty good drawer, let's put it that way, right? And but that was my skill. It wasn't her skill, it was my skill, and that was mixed. But she used to get really upset that my mum would give me top marks, and then she'd get the pity marks. This is a joke we've had for decades now. But that gave me the confidence to think I'm really creative. But actually, in hindsight now, it's that's not really my creativity booming. Because she was creative in baking and textiles and sort of even social situations, very creative. So I think you can get a miscomprehension even younger, but if it helps you grow as a person, sack it off a bit of ignorance every now and then. You'd be 6 years old and scoring a goal at school, and you'd be like, "That was magic! That was a magic moment!" You believe in your creativity and your confidence, and I think it's all good. Certainly when you're younger, as long as you don't become too cocky with it. I think there are lots of moments. I think, so it's the big one actually for me is I directed the end of year show, prefect show in year 11, and that was that was a big changing moment for me, because first of all, teachers had always done the productions, they'd always led the productions, and I don't know how I got it, but I ended up writing this fairy tale style script that it was on a big stage, kind of lights, filmed, actors, costumes, everything. And I never, ever done anything like that. And the bit that got me was I remember I'm to go into this group of dancers and teaching them the soul bossa nova, the Austin Powers dance. And I'd never danced in my life before. I was nervous. I practically throwing up the night before, thinking about going into this room, teach all these very, very good-looking, athletic young women who had been dancing since they were about 2. But it was a groundbreaking moment for me, because I realized that it didn't matter that I didn't know how to dance very well. It was just a throwing myself in. I had a vision. I think that's it. I had a vision, and I wanted to share that, and I wanted to work with people. Like I said, it wasn't me who was doing the dance. I was working with very talented people. And that was just a changing moment for me, because this is how it can work. I can have an idea, I can have a vision, I can share it with people, they can put their own spin on it, they can do their bits, I can leave them to do that, but we're all working towards a single goal. And that for me, so about 16 years old, that was a groundbreaking moment.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Because this whole area of creativity, I mean, I think I've mentioned to you before that my dad used to say, Phil, you couldn't draw your breath. And he's absolutely right. It sounds like I'm exaggerating, Tom, but if you said to me, draw a picture of a man now, I'm not kidding you. Your youngest daughter could do a better job, and I know how young she is, because I've just not got any of that artistic creativity. And sometimes I debate even within myself, because I'm very good at coming up with ideas and business ideas and entrepreneurial ideas. But at the heart of it, I ask myself sometimes, is that more about being a good problem solver than being a creative?
Yeah. I think there's technical skill and there's creativity. For me, the difference. So if I said to you right now, Phil, are you a creative? Do you consider yourself to be a creative individual? Would you say yes?
I'd say yes, as in business ideas, but I wouldn't say yes in terms of painting or sculpture or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, really.
No, definitely. And I think it's so you get stimulated by something, you have ideas, and then the innovation, I think of it, is actually taking creativity on. I think it's the innovation bit that people get. So I can't write a great song, and there's certain things I can't do, but it's because I think I lack the technical skill, and I've lacked repetition of the stimulus. So people who are amazing songwriters usually have listened to a wealth of songs, like great writers, read loads of books. And I think it's the same thing. If you're going to write a book, you should read lots of books. If you're going to make a film, you should probably watch lots of films. I know there's some exceptions to the rule, but generally speaking, that's that stimulus kind of copy, what is it? Great artists, good artists borrow, isn't it? Great artists steal, all that kind of quote. But the thing is, for you, is that if you feel like you're not a good sculptor or poet or something like that, it's probably because you haven't read or looked or tried or copied, you just haven't had that stimulus. But it doesn't mean that you can't use your creativity to come up with a great idea for a sculpture or for a poem or something like that. And I think that's just it. It's just, again, it's that confidence thing. I consider myself to be creative, but I don't consider myself to be good at creating everything. Does that make sense?
It does. It absolutely does. And I think it's another interesting debate, actually. That debate about couldn't or wouldn't,
Yes.
I think is an interesting one. So is it that I can't draw my breath? Is it that I can't draw? Or is it the fact that I'm so disinterested in it and perhaps got told at school when I was 7 that I couldn't draw my breath? Or Phil, that looks more like a cow than a squirrel, that kind of thing. Or is it that I can't or won't?
Yeah. Well, speaking as a director, as somebody who directors typically are yes or no people. They're a novice of everything, aren't they? Basically, because they work with, certainly at high level, they work with film composers, artists, actors, everything. They can't be good at all of that. They can't. There's simply one person can't be, but they're creative in itself. So you're right. I think it's an attitude thing there, and that's one thing that does frustrate me in life a little bit. And I try and encourage people to view things differently. So my mum's a key one. I brought up again. I'm going to embarrass her so much, but she's one I think that is very creative. She's used to be a journalist. She's very good at narratives and stories, but she often tells herself that she can't do things like playing piano, speaking languages, and it's that thing of we all do it, don't we? And I've done it too. But it's just like, don't say you can't do it. Just say you know that you're going to do it. Change the language of it. And if you don't want to do it, then don't talk about it. If you don't want to be fluent in 16 languages, fair enough. You don't have to be, but don't say you can't learn a language. I think that's the wrong. I had that. I was on a shoot with a guy, a Dutch camera operator, and I said, I really struggle to learn new languages. He says, well, that's your problem. He says, he said, you're already saying you struggle to do something. I was like, oh yeah, I do. He said, what you should do is just like, you're going to learn some new words. And if those words happen to be Dutch, there you go. You're speaking Dutch, so it is. Even on myself, that was only like 2 years ago. And I found myself making that mistake of using a language that was basically probing me to think that I couldn't do something. I thought, what a silly thing. If you want to do something, you should go for it. And if it takes you 2 days, great. If it takes you 20 years, so be it.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think as you get older, and I know I don't look it, but I'm quite a lot older than you. And then I woke up. Then I woke up, mate. Then I woke up. And as you get older, your self-awareness increases all the time. And as you know, I've been doing this this project, this new business concept called Passions, which I think you're aware of, where we're interviewing and researching passions and people's passions. Yeah. And as I've gone through that process, one of the reasons I do these things is because I learn so much from it. I meet people and talk to people about their passions and their stories, and I just love all that kind of thing. I suspect probably somewhere in a parallel universe there's a Phil Crowshaw with hair on his head, maybe, who's actually a journalist.
He's boring, and doesn't like people,
boring. Who's a journalist, because I think when they won't bore people with my story, but there was a point when I left college where one of those sliding doors moments where I might have ended up in journalism, which is interesting for me anyway. So the point I'm really making is that for me, I think a lot of the problem or a lot of the issue is connecting with your passion. Because I think if you're passionate about it, or even if you just talk about it, if very interested, but if you're passionate about it, it will drive you through with motivation when it gets a bit tough, or it gets a bit harder, or it gets a bit monotonous. The motivation keeps going. It's all the cliches: never give up, keep going no matter what. And all
You're
that
right, though. You're right. I did some mind mapping recently about myself. I wanted to become more self-aware, and I was like, when people was like, you're trying to promote yourself, aren't you? And it's like the thing that makes you most unique is your stories. That's the key thing. When people are like, oh, I'm a video maker. Well, what makes you different from all the other video makers out there? And it is more to do with your story that in turn then has an effect on your values and your behaviors. And I was thinking like, well, how do I sum it up? So for me, I'm a creative leader. That's one way I describe myself. I'm resourceful. But the third thing is passionate. And I said, compared to people out there doing a job just for the money, you're right. And commitment, focus. Someone said to me the other day, and I don't know if you agree with it, because it's a bit of a thing, but it said like passion is the difference between kind of like a hobby and your life, basically. So, when people say this is my job and this is my hobby, and they categorize everything. If something's your passion, surely it oozes out in everything that you do, whether it's your family time, your, you know, your work time, your hobby time. It kind of oozes. I think that's true. If it's your passion. Even the other day, I was out on the beach, and I'm not a songwriter, but I had this little kind of, and I just picked up my phone and I just started recording it as I'm walking back to kind of the camp. And it's that thing of like, you know, you just can't help it. It doesn't matter whether somebody's paying you or not. You just can't help it. You can't keep it inside. Whatever your passion is, that's what I think it is. It kind of can't be contained or shouldn't be contained. I think that's the difference between a passion and just something that is nice.
You have just totally hit the nail on the head, and that's definitely one. We're into about the 65th, I think, interview, and still going strong. And that is one of the. If you ask me what sort of things have I noticed and what sort of conclusions have I made through this journey so far, it's fascinating when you're interviewing people and you start to talk to them about their passion, and like you say, they just come alive.
Yeah,
the faces light up, their energy increases, they start gesticulating, and it is absolutely like that. And a lot of them have said that without any shadow of a doubt, they would, if they could and they didn't have to make a living, you know, if the lottery fairies come along, or the, you know, great Aunt Hilda, they didn't know they had left them 5 million quid in the will, they would still do that. They would still do it, and they would do it without getting paid for it.
yeah.
And I think that's
distinction. You find this distinction as well, though, with passion. It's like what is it actually all coming to the end of? Because like I was reading something the other day about kind of human needs, basically, and like, you know, the need to matter, the need to be heard, the need to, you know, the need to have freedom. There's certain needs that we want. Now, I've had this conversation a lot with musicians, particularly, actually. It's like, would you write songs if I gave you I don't know, £1 million to live off till retirement, whatever? Would you write songs every day, but you're not allowed to release them? You're not allowed to share them with anybody, but you're financially secure. This is a different thing, isn't it? It's different. It's
fascinating.
Like, are these songs for you, or are they for somebody else? Same with videos and art and anything, building a bridge, you know, an architect, whatever it is that you do, you want to make, or you want to share. It's like, how important is it that you can just do that thing? And how important is it the ability to be able to share it, or better still, have some kind of impact on other people? So can you imagine if John Lennon and Paul McCartney wrote all those songs and they never published them? Can you imagine that? And like, that's
such a fascinating thought, you know. That question is a brilliant question, actually, what you've just raised there. And it's a brilliant thought process. And it's that whole thing, like you said, and I know what you're talking about there. As human beings, we want to be seen and heard. And actually, I talk a lot with my clients, about business clients, about the need to be seen and heard. And that's, of course, when you get into marketing and the discussion about marketing. But it's that whole thing. If it's not going to be seen or heard by somebody else, will there be enough gratification in doing it to make it worthwhile? And I've paraphrased you there, but that's the way I look at it.
No, you're right. And like, for example, we get students coming over quite a bit to our offices, and I try and bring about sort of half a dozen students through every year. And at least 2 or 3 of them have aspirations to work in broadcast or maybe film. And the big thing with broadcast film, yes, the big productions, you might meet celebrities, all that kind of stuff. But there seems to be a thing there that from the age of probably about 15, 16, it's the idea of getting a credit on a big film or TV production, a credit. So the idea of sitting at home or sitting at the cinema and the titles come up at the end and you see your name there. And you know what's amazing is that maybe 3, 4, 5 years later, after they've maybe made that first step and, you know, they've got runner or assistant, whatever, how quickly that wears off on some people. Not everyone, but quickly wears off, because maybe they've done the 16-hour days and there's actually a lack of creativity in running around. But it's to have that moment thinking, hey, you know, that new Fast and Furious film or that new Spielberg thing, look at me, I'm there, right there. And for some people, that's all that matters. But I think that wears off on some people. And actually, the people who still work in those industries, is that the be-all and end-all? Same with Oscars and awards and stuff. It's great to get them, but clearly, I don't think that's the driving factor, that element of recognition. I think it is. But if somebody comes up to you and you've written a song and they go, you know what, that song really got me through a hard breakup or my mum dying or something like that, I think that's a different kind of recognition. And that's something where you feel you've had like social impact in some way. You know, people who've made great art of all kinds, to know that that work has impacted people positively, it's helped them. That's different. And I think it's not quite selfless creativity, but certainly in this world now where Instagramming and all that kind of stuff out there, TikToking, it's very creative, isn't it? But is there a big argument there between, is all creativity a little bit selfish, or is it meant to be selfless? You know, it's a really hard discussion because
it is. It is, but it's a fascinating one. But I also think that, and I'm generalizing now, but a lot of us, and I would put myself in, probably if I think back, I would probably put myself in this category. And it's a wider context of a conversation, because it's, are we ever satisfied? You know, what you're talking about there about the credit, for me, is like, you know, you're not, well, oh yeah, I've hit the credit, I've achieved that, I've got that, and now I'm not satisfied anymore. I want my name to be bigger, or I want it to appear further up or I want it to be on a movie that's a global hit.
And it's good.
I remember when I got. Sorry. I remember when I got my first company car, and it was amazing. Oh, I've got a company car. I've not had to buy a car. I've got a company car. And I remember then it was like about a year later, can I have a bigger one? Can I have a better one? Then I got a better one, and then I wanted a bigger one, and then I wanted a newer one. and that's just one example. But do you think that, you know, as humans, do you think we're just never, a lot of us maybe, just never satisfied at the end of the day?
It's a paradox, and it's one that I don't think I will ever truly understand, because I'm in the same sort of situation as everyone else, which is like, having motivation, having goals, having dreams are really good, because you're driving towards its purpose, right? We've got something we're working towards. But then if you're never satisfied, that's bad. That's bad for your mental health. And you're like, okay, right. So if I sit back, but wait a second, what's wrong now? Why are you not trying to do? You know, so you're going backwards and forwards, and then the whole thing is like, when you die, you can't take it with you. You know, you got a £1 million house or a Aston Martin or whatever, you can't take it with you. But you should enjoy the moments. So I should enjoy the Aston Martin, or I can't, you know, and you literally, it is a paradox. And I think that, you know, everybody comes down on a different side of the coin in every situation. You know, you'll talk to some people and it's like, you shouldn't own expensive things because there's people out there who have nothing. And then you feel really bad. But then on the other side of things is like, you know, it's like, you deserve it. You've tried really well. You've worked really hard this year. You deserve that. And we taught that from kids, you know, when you get, you know, a gold star and it's like, here's your sticker, you deserve that, well done. You know, it's a paradox. I have no answers on that, and as a parent, it's terrifying, because, you know, your kids come and ask you all sorts of questions. You're like, well, this is what I was taught, but actually everybody says this nowadays, and it's awful. That's where creativity comes in use, because you got to think on the spot. You got to problem solve a little bit, and you go, actually, what is a good solution to this problem?
That word is brilliant, what you use there, paradox. You know, my daughter's 14, right? And you know, they say, don't kid a kidder, you know, chip off the old block. And I'll get the dad on WhatsApp. Dad, look at this. I've got an achievement award at school. I'm so pleased. And I know what's coming next. As a reward, can I have? You know, and it's that whole thing about, and in a way, I can see her creative cogs turning.
Yeah.
How can I take this and how can I make this into something that can benefit me? Absolutely. And then you're into the debate about what's manipulation and what's influence. And one of the things that's critical for success and arguably fulfillment, and we'll talk about fulfillment in a minute, in work, is the ability to influence people to get them to be or do what you need them to be or do.
Yeah. And it's that kind of leadership and management. It's all those kind of things, isn't it? Yeah. You know, telling people to do stuff, manipulate. I mean, my kids, they're much younger, but like I've got a 6 and a 4-year-old, and the 6-year-old will say, like, you know, to the 4-year-old has done really well today. You should reward her, Daddy. You should get her something really nice. And I'm waiting for it and thinking, well, you've also done that thing today as well. So does that mean I should get you something nice? What a great idea, Daddy. That's 6 years old. Nobody prepares you for that. Yeah, it's a hard one, isn't it? I mean, on the basis of it is, if you're not asking for things, but you're given things, that always seems the right way around, isn't it? If you do something without the expectancy that you're going to get something in return, that is, as we've again probably raised, is the right way to view things. But yeah, it is such a hard. I mean, in terms of looking parenting styles again, like, so my mum was very much the well done, pat on the back, fantastic. Wasn't always getting a prize, but you know, it was a lot of that kind of well done. Even when I sucked at stuff, it was well done every single time. Where my dad, while he is, you know, he's very encouraging, he had a slightly different tact where often, particularly if I was drawing or making something and I would show it to him, he'd always be much more constructive, and he'd always be like, you know, just a bit more shading, just a little bit more there, just a bit more. But that, even though as frustrating as that can be, I'd always go back and then I'd be doing it again. And I think as an individual today, right or wrong, I'm very detail focused, and I think perfectionism is a word that should be thrown out, because nothing and no one can be perfect. But searching for excellence, I think that's a good kind of phrase to look for. But that, again, those two different styles and influences. If you have, you know, bosses that work the same way, where you got a boss that pat on the back, you know, failure's not a problem, just pick yourself up and go again. I think that's really healthy. But equally, I think to have somebody in your team who can allow you to be a bit more observant and detailed, a bit more focused, and just to challenge you a little bit. I think ultimately, though, as individuals, we tend to like to choose who is maybe our cheerleader, who's our mentor, who's our coach. I think, you know, there's probably 5 different types of people like that in your life. And I spoke to a great mentor called Andy Hall, who said, outside of work, Tom, you should have a social circle if you can with people who take up those roles. So have that person you can go down to the pub with, and when things aren't going great, he'll just give you a bit of she'll give you a bit of a nudge and go, it's all right, you know, you're doing great, you're fantastic, you're a great person. Everyone needs that. But equally, sometimes you need to go to somebody and you go, this isn't going great, and they're going, well, why is it not going great, Tom? What do you need to do? And you're like, well, I could do this. Well, get on it right now, get out there and go do it. And you need those people. But if it's in the wrong position, it's not people you select. You get really annoyed, don't you? You get annoyed by people telling you what to do. And so I think there has to be a little bit of choice, you know. And
so sometimes, Tom, you just have to accept that some people just need to kick up the pants.
It's amazing how did you hear people say that?
Sorry, mate. It's just...
Well, I think we're cut from the kind of similar cloth where, you know, we're quite sort of self, you know, we don't work in big organizations. We're not, I would say, we're the kind of cog type, you know, approach. We like to kind of feel like we've got our independence and that we're making decisions. And it's amazing amongst those kind of people like that. You do often hear that because we just like things to get done. So yeah,
got a comment here actually from Colin Stebbing. Great debate, gents. Love Tom's take on the different types of creativity. Col, actually, I call him Col because Col is actually a good mate of mine from school, and this is a classic example of social media. I'm still in contact with Col because of social media. Brilliant. And it's and it, blimey, it must be, well, I don't know what, 20. 30 years, 35, 30 years at least since I've seen him. But I'm still obviously in touch with him. And I need to get Col on the show, actually, because part of Col's background with me was we used to be tear-assing around on motorbikes around Manchester.
Okay, yeah.
And that's probably a show in itself. And we got a bit creative on those bikes, Col, didn't we? I remember. I had an X7. For those I had an X7, and Col had a Super Dream, Honda Super Dream.
See, this thing about, like, I don't know, being Louise, I'll have to check that out later. But that's thing, I've never ridden a motorcycle or anything in my life.
I had completely irrelevant to the topic today, but I got a bike and this just shows you how things have changed. Myself and Cole, really, we got bikes when we were about 16, maybe 16, 17. We'd only ever been on a pedal bike.
Yeah.
And the X7 with an L plate on would do 100 miles an hour.
Wow. That's insane, that, isn't it? Just
no test.
That is insane, isn't it? It's just
that I can't believe it now. I cannot believe it now. And then I kind of got through that phase, and then I had the classic midlife crisis in my 30s, probably around about the age you are now, actually, just to scare you. And I suddenly went and passed my test and started revving around with leathers like a total and utter idiot for another 2 or 3 years, and then I got it out of my system again. But what I was going to say to you was when it comes to fulfillment, because, you know, obviously we talk a lot about success in work, but a lot of the passions journey and the passions debates is more about looking at fulfillment in work.
Sure. Because
I've seen a lot of research that says that because of the amount of time we spend in work, is that if we are fulfilled in our work, then we will be significantly happier. And if we're happy in our home life and fulfilled in our home life and fulfilled our personal life and fulfilled and fulfilled in our work, you've almost got happiness in the true sense of the word. What sort of work do you, when you're doing certain work, what creates the biggest fulfillment for you as the different elements of your work that you do?
Yeah, it's good point that. So, I mean, over the last year, particularly with all the kind of pandemic stuff going on, there's been two key clients that I've worked with that I got a lot of fulfillment with, and one of them is a heritage site. And what I was doing was actually teaching a group of I think we're all retired individuals who are like tour guides and gardeners now, teaching them digital skills. And I got huge amounts of fulfillment from that. I mean, it's lovely to go over to the site; it's a beautiful thing. But I think the interaction was always really, really positive. And that's one thing I've noticed on shoots as well, that even actually when I was doing a Saturday job back in a cafe and I was like on a dishwasher when I was like 15, 16 years old, the interaction with the people I was working with was really positive. Even though you like literally getting your hands grubby, literally washing plates. And it was amazing how fulfilling that was at the end of the day, to kind of spend time with positive interaction. And that's the one thing I've noticed more and more and more and more. When interaction is not positive, you can be working on the slickest, coolest brand, whatever project you like, and it's a nightmare. If you can work on the smallest, little tiniest thing you like that nobody cares about but you got really good positive interaction, it's amazing. And that's taken me years to really kind of see that. And, people go, who have you worked with? Work with any celebrities? What big brands you work with? And you get all those kind of questions. And you can name drop a few stuff. But quite often it's the names that they haven't heard of, that you go, I would do 10 more of those jobs because the interaction was fantastic. And take it a little bit further, if you feel you've had an impact where you can walk away, or months later, people saying stuff. So I get emails now from people sort of talking about filming things and making things from that group, and it feels wonderful. It feels amazing because I feel like I've helped you with that. I'm not giving you that. I've helped you with that, and it's really, really nice that. And yeah, it's lovely they're more confident, they're more energetic about things. They're doing it. They're not just talking, but they're actually doing it. There's a lot of fulfillment there, which is lovely.
Brilliant. Well, I know obviously that your family is very important to you. There's no doubt about that. And I know also that because I was watching you on social media like everybody else, especially during the lockdown, that you started to reconnect, didn't you, with your real artistic flair over the lockdown. So I've got some examples here of the work you did, but just start off by telling us a story behind it.
Yes. So let's rewind to last March 2020. So I've got 3 girls now, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and my youngest was born the day before we went into first lockdown. So you can imagine that. So it was already a bit height and everything, but officially baby pops out. Oversimplification for my wife, but a baby pops out, and
God, you're going to be in trouble if she watches this.
I know. 24 hours later, Prime Minister's there, and we're reaching a national state of lockdown. So. Yeah. Then I'm there, and she was a bit sick as well, actually, for about 4 weeks. But I've got this brand new baby girl, and she's not sleeping at night. And I'm always better at nights. My wife's very good at mornings, so I always do the nights kind of thing when they're younger. So I kind of had this baby, and you're doing everything, you're sleeping, you're rocking. And after a while of this, I sort of in my study, and I remember I've just got kind of pens and paper, and I just remember sort of doodling at first. And quite quickly, I sort of found that I was sketching things, because even though I've got the baby there, I've got a free arm, and you can't do a lot of. I know you can watch TV, but I don't know. But I just thought I just need to just be active, because I'm going to fall asleep otherwise. So I remember just sketching, and I just started doing this on a regular basis, and then. I just started finding things to draw and pictures of family. And then because then I thought, it'd be nice to actually, they're in isolation. Maybe I should draw my granddad or somebody. I'll send them a picture, So it just turns into a little bit more of an action thing where you think, I'm going to include and share this. And then by the time I got to July, a really good friend of mine, Ben, who's an amazing professional illustrator, he just went, I like the illustration. Here you go. Here's a digital tablet. He went, try that out. And suddenly I could hook it up to the computer. I wasn't doing it under dim lights anymore. I had a lit screen, and I had a pen that could be charcoal, paint, colored crayons. It could be everything. It just be one pen. I wasn't scrambling around in a little, box for kind of what I needed. I didn't have to sharpen, it's a nightmare. It's just, you think about the practicalities of it. So just having a pen where I could just doodle away. And that set me off. And I've not properly drawn, other than a bit of storyboarding, I've not properly drawn since I was probably 17 years old when I was doing an art A level. So to reconnect with that and allow that to come through, and I sketch every week now. It's both a bit of therapy, but it's now turned into a bit of a productive thing. I've done, in the last sort of few months, I've done sketches for charity, I've done sketches for family, I've even done a few commissions, and it's just, it feels great just to use that again and sort of reconnect with it.
Well, on that basis, I think we need an awe moment, Tom.
The
And I
tiny
can honestly
smiling.
say, I can honestly say, Tom, that I've not been able to produce an awe moment on this show so far.
Oh,
So you're a
brilliant.
first. So let's have a little bit of an awe moment.
Well, we're back again. Not in the middle of the night this time, but I've got this little spud. He's having a little sleep on my arms. Well, we're working on something for Grandma today. So hopefully she's going to like that.
See it in my eyes. Every parent knows that look in the eyes. That was probably like the first week. Something just like,
yeah. I thought you were going to say. I don't even remember recording that. I thought you were going to say. And you're giving us another one or two other awe moments as well, haven't you? So we'll have a quick look at all the awe moments.
Evening all, and we're back again. I'm with this little munchkin at the moment, sort of just drifting a little bit. Ooh, yeah, you look dreamy. We're also working on another drawing. See how that one turns out.
You see, so you've told the story, and what's so unusual about this is that we've got the evidence to show,
yeah,
that exactly as you described it had actually happened. Really happened. So, shall we have a look at some of your work then? You can just give us a little bit of a talk about some of your work. So,
sure, yeah.
Let's have a look at the first one I've got.
Oh yeah. So funny one there, top right one is that was for my brother-in-law, and he's got a beautiful black Labrador, and he was just like, and their surname's Nelson. So he's like, "Do you think you could draw my dog?" Yeah, sure, but could you do his head on the body of Admiral Nelson? I was like, "Give it a go." So that was funny. And then you've got like a friend of my wife. She was like got a dog, and she wanted there. The other stuff, like obviously there's my baby girl in top left, but the other stuff, which is like kind of fan art. It's interesting again with creativity that like just drawing like Shrek, I don't think it's particularly creative. But the creative element for me was like deciding like what to do with like say the coloring and things, you know, so like that kind of paint splattered effect. That's where I got actually a lot of enjoyment. And I wouldn't say I'm a brilliantly consistent digital artist. What I would say is that I like to do something new every time I draw something. So you see all the styles are quite different in a way. And this is all on my Instagram channel, which is Tom's Creative Canvas. So you got a little plug there. But if you look at the stuff, it is just an exploration of creativity, like whether it's fan art, whether it's a picture of my daughters, whether it's, you know, a friend. That top left one there was for a charity, Run for Patrick. They raised about 40 grand. It's amazing. And
wow.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And I just thought, like, someone said, "Oh, could you do like an illustration for Run for Patrick?" I was like, "Yeah." So yeah, it's just really trying things. Like I said, they're all a bit different, and I just love it. And you find things like certain textures, certain colors. You know, using white crayon rather than black crayon, and it's just really fun. And I think that with anything that I do, certainly illustration, what I do. Even like these Shrek ones, which all look quite similar, different expressions. I was trying to, you know, just do something a bit different with every single one. Some of the early stuff was very simple, like the Ace Ventura one. It was just literally a black pencil sketch. But yeah, I've just really enjoyed it because I said I've managed to, you know, I've picked films and things that I've really liked. That was the early kind of stage, like, you know, Sherlock and Kung Fu Panda. I love the expressions. I love the characters. And yeah, even though it's kind of copying, really, it isn't very original. There is still a degree of originality in the way that you achieve it. And ultimately, what I was doing really, I was just practicing in those early days. This is before anybody cared. I mean, a lot of that stuff that you see there, that didn't come out anywhere publicly for months and months. It was just for me. And then one day, I think it was my wife who said, "Why aren't you doing this like as a thing?" I said, "I'm not really sure I'm there yet." And then it was the charity thing that got me across the line because somebody said, "Oh, you know, why don't you raise some money?" Because sadly, two of our members of family died last year because of leukemia. So we've been really supporting the Christie. And I did some stuff at Christmas as well called Captive Christmas where we raised money. And it was just a really good way to think, I'm helping somebody while I'm having a bit of a tough time with isolation and grief and things like that. And I really want to be creative. So it was a way of just kind of bringing everything together where I could be creative, I could deal with some personal issues, and I could feel like I was actually helping a charity in the process. So I think for people who are struggling, that's creativity and doing something can really, really help.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And is it something you think you'll continue with, or is there? Do you think there's an element as you get busier, as slowly but surely we come out of lockdown? And I don't know what the time scale is. Maybe never, but at the moment, maybe in another 6 months or so. I think we're not, without getting into that topic, but we're possibly not too far off when everybody's been vaccinated, where we've got no choice, I think, just to accept that we need to live with whatever it is, and just accept the fact that there might be a few people who pass away, unfortunately, and that's the way it'll be. Just like, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, we have to live with cancer and awful things like that, and leukemia, as you said, that had affected you, and all things like that. Do you think you can carry it on, or do you think you'll get sucked back into the rat race, as it were, you know?
Sure. Well, at the moment, I'm trying to use, I call it Tom's Creative Canvas, not as a company name or anything like that, but just as a vehicle, really. Just like, you know, Canvas is just meant to be, it's just kind of like broad, you know, there's meant to not really be a border on it. It's just, you know, it's just a thing. And I think the problem with creatives, though, is like I was saying before, you don't like to repeat yourself too much. It needs to be fresh. It needs to be innovative. So whatever I do moving forwards, I hope I don't get sucked back into things. I hope that everything I'm doing moving forwards is just a constant exploration, and I'll grow. So like one thing I'd like to do is I'd like to start animating some of my illustrations in the future. So that will kind of motivate me to kind of take it on the next level. I'd like to try different things. I'd like to collaborate with other people. I'd love to do VR art. I have no idea how to do VR art. But there's I think it's called VR Rosie on Instagram. She's phenomenal. And I watch it, and it's that stimulus, it's inspiration, thinking, that is cool to be able to put a headset on and like just draw a cathedral and then just suddenly be stood in a cathedral. That's phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. And then, of course, you've got the digital element to enjoy from that, not just the creative side.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, and then sharing that, you know, being able to give like a VR headset to like my daughter and go, right, I'm going to take you to Planet Tom right now. Oh, what's Planet Tom? Well, the trees are in the shape of candy bars, and, you know, it's just like, just a crazy world. And that's what I love about digital. That's why I think I'm a digital storyteller predominantly, is because I like the combination of the oldest form of learning and entertainment, stories, and then the most popular way of sharing, digital. I think the combination of those two things is just so exciting. And every day somebody's doing something different that is great stimulus to make you think, I'm feeling now motivated to do something myself.
Recently, I've been asked to become, and been actually confirmed to become, an ambassador for a college in Lancashire for business and creative. And I think I might collar you, I will try and collar you sometime in the next few months, because I think speaking to the kids, and I say kids, everybody's a kid nowadays, if I get to my age, speaking to the students about the stuff you've been talking about and the background, and they'll probably take more notice of you because you're not 106 years old like I am. So they'll probably take more notice of you as well. And part of that actually is that whole process is to help youngsters. At the college, they've recognized that the academic world, it sounds very obvious, but the academic world isn't for every kid. In fact, it's probably for not for a lot of kids, if the truth be known. And they're desperate to find new ways of stimulating them, inspiring them to learn new things and learn new skills in different ways that will allow them to go into the world of work and be useful and valuable, without just waving the flipping O levels, or, so show my age, GCSEs or A stars or whatever. So it's a wonderful thing. That's why I've agreed to do it. I was hoping for a knighthood, but I'll take it as second option.
MBE,
exactly.
I think any acronym really right now. Yeah, it'd be great.
Any acronym. Yeah, absolutely. So I will speak to you about that, because I think it would be great for them to hear what you got to say. One of the things I was going to say, just to kind of finish off, really, was when I was doing the research, I was looking at, were the ways that you could develop your creativity, because that's one of the questions I was asked by the client. And I did some research, and I found a few ways that this particular article I found came up with a number of ways that they felt that you could develop creativity, which I thought was quite interesting. And the first one was committing yourself to creativity. In other words, fully devote yourself to developing the creative abilities. I guess that's doing, isn't it, as much as anything else?
Yeah.
setting goals, enlisting the help of others, and putting time aside each day to develop the skills. So being committed, I suppose, to it.
Yeah, you got to be. It's got to be, because it's like any muscle. You know, if you don't exercise, your body's not going to let you down. It's the same thing with your creativity, your mind. You have to exercise it. I'll tell you, just because I know you're a bit short of time, I've learned loads of creative techniques over 10 years from very sort of wise and experienced individuals. And I really have taken those on. And it was amazing that only a few weeks ago, I was speaking to this guy called Aid Fleet, who's another fellow creative. And I was telling him about all the stuff I've learned. And he went, sounds like a lot of what I've read in this book. And I've actually got it with me today. And it is true. So this book, I don't know if you've read it, but it's called Sticky Wisdom.
No, I haven't actually.
Right. This is an amazing read, right? And the reason why I can tell you is that I got to page, I'm trying to think what page it would have been, page 15. And there's this thing, right? It's called the 4 R's. You can Google it, right? You don't want to pay 10 quid or whatever it is for the book. 4 R's, right? And I learned this about 10 years ago from a mentor called Moira, who now works at University of Salford. And she spent 20 years at the BBC, and she was very good at bringing the techie guys and the content guys together, because obviously content guys are all big picture and, ideas. Techie guys are very like the digital and so forth. So with BBC, you had the guys like invented like iPlayer, and then people like producing huge shows like Dragon's Den, and they weren't talking. So she'd use these techniques to bring them together. And I think that's it. There's 3 levels. You've got the top level thinking in the shower, an idea comes to you, eureka moment, The ideas are never fully formed. It's just a nice, a what if moment. The second level is, I know some people call it river jumping, but it's the mind mapping. See, when you actually spend some detailed time actually exploring things, getting away from the obvious thing, rephrasing it, challenging assumptions. But the third thing is the creative ensemble, which is the idea that you bring diverse thinkers, the techies, the content people, you get the introverts, the extroverts, the, big picture thinkers, the down to earth people, all that kind of stuff. You get them together, and then that's when magic happens. And that's when an idea can go from being just a simple what if to an actual innovative solution. So I would say that as well as being committed, I think getting together with other people is hugely important. And reading that book, which is not I'm not even plugging, it's not me, but Sticky Wisdom, cracking book.
Well, yeah, that person's got a sale from me. So if you're recommending it, mate, that's good enough for me.
Yeah. It's not like overly academic or anything like that. It just walks through. It's very it's based a bit in the sort of marketing world in some things, but they use loads of examples of practical creativity, but innovation. So it's actually it's taken hold, it's had impact, and they're really transparent about like this didn't work, but it was a good bit of creativity. This did work, and this is the reason why. So anyway, check it out. But the 4 R's, honestly, certainly for people who are trying to market the business, personal branding, all that kind of stuff, just come up with a multi-platform campaign, for example. The 4 R's, I guarantee it'll take you to success.
Brilliant. I absolutely love that. I think that's a fantastic thing. And it's like in the whole world of digital, which is another show altogether, but you've kind of got those 3 cornerstones, haven't you? You might think of there's more than that, but the 3 that always strike me is the technologists, who produce the actual technology, the code, if you like, that allows an iPlayer to work, or this platform that we use, StreamYard, to allow us to multi-stream all over the world, to there and everywhere, from your back bedroom or your front garden or wherever, which is fascinating in itself as well. So you've got the geeks, the real geeks in that scenario. And then you've got the second, which is obviously the content providers. Yeah. Because without those, and this is where the real creativity comes in, your writers and your people who produce the content and write the content and then video the content, or of course now audio, podcast the content. And then the third element, I think, as well, particularly in digital, when it comes to marketing in particular, is now data. And data's massive. And I spoke to I interviewed a guy for Passions called Shami Kalra, and he started Omalogato Watches. I can never pronounce it. Omalogato Watches, wonderful watches, a wonderful brand. And I asked him, what do you think is the secret sauce in your success? Because and he said, well, I'm a designer, so my watches look nice. I connect it all to motorsport. So motorsport people want the watch because it's connected with motorsport, and the marketing connects with motorsport. He said, but the number one thing, which is the thing that leaves me cold actually, is the data. He says, I know every single click. I know exactly where it's going. I know how to remarket. I understand my customers.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that that's where the magic happens. If you get those three and you really, really well, I think that's probably where the magic happens.
I think you're right. And I think certainly going back to that discussion we started with, which is this for you or is this to share with the world? If you are sharing anything with the world, even if you're not charging for it, but you want a positive reaction from it, you have to understand your audience. So whether it's marketing, sales, hobby, volunteering, fundraising, whatever it might be, if you're actively sharing it with people to get a positive reaction, you have to understand your audience. And you're right, the data feels cold, doesn't it? It feels very techie and analytic and stuff like that. But
yeah,
you think about, there would be some songs out there that were big hits, maybe in the 80s or 70s, 50s, 20s. But if they released that song today, it wouldn't go anywhere because the generations and cultures change. Same with fashions, something that was really big decades ago, which was a big hit. You release it in today's culture, it might not be a success. And it's all about, if you're, timing and audiences and their needs. And I must admit, if you could do one thing, is whether you've got a product, a service, it's you, it's whatever it might be, but that thing that you want to get out there, put it on a piece of paper, put it in a circle and do a mind map and put yourself in the shoes of your audience and write down what they would want from that thing, whether it's from you, your company, whatever. And honestly, I think that's a great starting point, because with that, you can create your mission statement then, which is like, this is the thing that I'm going to do. And that's your driving force. It doesn't matter how many failures you have, you can keep going back to that and going, that's what my audience wants from what I'm offering. And this is my, so if you look at Google's mission statement, it's basically just organizing the world's data. That's it. That's what they want to do. And they've made a huge success out of it. So yeah, I think that's a really good place to start if you're talking about the data side of things, which is, what do these people want? It's a great company, just for quickly, called Unlimited Potential. This week alone, I rang them up. I did some digital training with them. I taught some of the guys how to make their videos. But I said, I really want to know about the work you do. Can I come and sit in one of your ideation meetings? And the meeting I sat in was basically a data meeting. They'd gone out, done focus groups and interviewed people, and they collated all that research, and they were delivering it back to the chief exec. And I just kind of got to see how they did that process. And it's fascinating, because you realize, what, if I just decide I like this, it doesn't care about anybody else, you're probably you're going to have to be very lucky to get the right thing, aren't you? Whereas if you look at a group of people and go, this is what they all want, and then you come up with an idea, it's probably going to take flight a bit more.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And at the same time as well, it's also about using creativity for fun as well. I mean, business and work, you spend a lot of time there, and it can be a grind sometimes. There's no doubt about it, especially if you're employed in those scenarios. Sometimes you're doing work that you really don't want to be doing, and maybe spreadsheets or whatever, especially if you're a bit creative anyway, you don't want to be doing it. So trying to produce or trying to create fun in the workplace is a good place to start. And I would say that, my own personal view, and it's just a personal view, is look after your creatives, because, and you mentioned the word earlier, and it's very true in business, innovation is the word. But in terms of innovation and creative, that next product that you produce, or even that next idea that saves your company 25% of overhead, could be what saves the company and/or ensures the company survives the pandemic and everything that goes with it. And I've seen this happen. One idea. So for goodness sake, my advice really, I suppose, would be, for goodness sake, give people the opportunity to share their ideas. Don't just, I've been in companies, Tom, many times where you say to people, do you get a chance to share your ideas? And they go, well, that's not my job.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry if you can hear this buzzing, my phone's buzzing.
No, but your point there was absolutely right. And I must admit, I've come up against this barrier a little bit as well, but I give you a great example. So in terms of the pandemic and adapting, I think the word virtual has saved the company I'm with at the moment, virtual, because we adapted so much we did physically. to enable us to carry on working with clients and, providing value, etc. But then you break that down further. So, for example, last year we did something a bit like this. We did these 20-minute shows, 2 a week. You were on at least one of them, if not more. And we tried to make every show different and try to showcase not just our technical abilities, but our creativity and what you could do. It's just like, this is what you can do. So it doesn't matter whether you're in pharmaceuticals or construction or digital media. It's like, wow, okay, I've learned something. I can communicate with my audience the same way that these guys are doing. And I brought some students on board, and I'd have like little brainstorm sessions. And I said, right, you're going to go away now and you're going to come up with an idea for a 20-minute show. And there's a young lad called Tom, call him TL, young Tom. He's younger than me. And he came up with an idea to do like a charades kind of show where you'd have actors, like professional actors in this virtual game of charades. And he came up with that. And, I gave him a bit of support, but I think even to this day, like almost a year later, he brought it up the other day, and he's still clearly quite proud of the fact that he came up with that idea, that even as a young student at the time, he's graduating now, but student, I kind of gave him that you go when you come up with something. That happened to me 10 years ago. I was challenged to go away over a weekend, come back. And to this day, I'm still really proud of that thing. So I think you're right. You have to protect creatives and you have to give them the opportunities. And certainly young creatives, they need a bit more of a brief, I think, than just an open canvas. I'm at a stage now where I like open canvas thinking. I just like to go and search for things. But I think when you're younger, it's nice to get a little bit of a guideline, like, we want to invent a new something, or this is the problem. But yeah, it's really important. And I think creatives do get buffeted. I know I have loads. And it's that thing of, yes, we can be a bit annoying. We can be very protective. We can be super curious. So we ask too many questions. We like to barge in and go, I've just had an amazing idea. And so many people hate that. So many people hate that. And I've had to like kind of realize I do that way too much. So yeah, and it's certainly when you're working with maybe methodical, introverted, techie types, who are very different in behavior profile, that can really frustrate them too. And that's something that I've learned as well a lot. But it comes down to the fact that am I aware and am I trying to do the right thing by that person, and they trying to do the right thing by you? And if you get that synergy, it doesn't matter what your behavior profile, personality, anything. I think then it just works because everybody's working towards a common goal. So to have a vision, to be aware and respectful of each other's different styles, and to protect the good stuff. Certainly as a creative director, I guess that's the role, isn't it? To protect the ideas.
It is. Tom, absolutely brilliant. I knew it'd be a good show, and it has been a good show. And it won't surprise you to know we could probably do another hour and still not cover the whole topic by any stretch of the imagination. So thanks for joining me today. I've asked Tom to start getting a bit creative about coming up with some inspiring music tracks, because I'm starting a radio show, because that's what you do when you're totally crazy and nuts. You do things like this.
It's a good move. I like the sound of that.
So Tom's going to be on it again. I'm going to bug him again. So thanks very much, Tom. Really appreciate that. Thanks for your time. Have a great weekend. Everybody. Hopefully you've got something out of that. I know I have, because I'm going out getting sticky wisdom. So I know I got a lot from it.
It was worth it. You got something out of it. And you have to say, come on, England.
Come on, England. Yes. Come on, England. We can do it. Football's coming home. I hope so. It's about time.
I really do. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Take care, mate. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.